here. So in this one, I'm gonna play through an exercise that I like to use as a warm-up, alternate picking builder, and also a way to either learn a particular tonality or making sure that I really got it down. So it's gonna be a systematic one, but it's gonna sound way better now because we're actually sticking to a tonality. And I chose A minor / C major today just to keep it simple. And as usual, you have the tabs available on my Patreon, so you have a link in the description for that. And just follow along here, and I'm gonna play this whole thing as I would do it when I practice normally, because again, I've started to record my practices now, so you can see what it sounds like when I practice generally. I'm going to talk you through some things that I think about in between each of these positions. It's not a very long workout though, so it's not going to be endless here, but hopefully I will provide you with some good pointers to think about when you try this yourself. So I'm going to do this at 80 BPMs, eighth notes, again as usual. That's pretty much the tempo I tend to practice at when it comes to any type of repetitive material, sometimes slower. Rarely faster actually, if I'm not working on specific subdivisions and things like that. But for just warming up and giving my technique a good workout, I want to keep it at a tempo where I can focus on what I consider is the most important thing, which is the accuracy and the relaxation. So the actual sequence goes like this. We're gonna go up 6 notes at a time, but instead of staying in one position like this, we're gonna move up one position for each string set. So we're gonna go up 6 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, alternate picking starting on a downstroke, and then we move up to the next position, do the same thing, until we reach the top string set here, which is B and E. Then I shift up to the next position again. So I'm going all the way from F up here, down here to G up here. And from here I'm gonna descend instead and do the same thing. So 6 notes back, move down a position, and then like that. You've most likely seen the sequence before if you're a big Paul Gilbert fan like me. So he covered this type of sequence in his first instructional video, but he did it in E minor and sort of left it at that. And I'm sure he's done this in all the positions as well, but in the actual video he only did it in this one position. So now we're gonna cover everything in the key of C major / A minor. I'm gonna play the whole thing, and you can play along if you want. And in between each set, I'm gonna give you some advice as well. And one thing before we start, what's so good about this is that you're gonna cover outside picking, meaning you're going down, up, down, up. So you get this outside picking on each part of the ascending bit. But then when you go down, when you descend, you're gonna have inside picking. So you have down, up, sort of inside the strings. And a lot of people are better at either one of these and tend to avoid the one that they're not so good at. And I think that's a very bad way to approach practice in general, because you want to get rid of problem areas, not just strengthen the stuff you're good at and then disregard everything else, because then you end up painting yourself into a corner technically where you have to make up some weird fingerings or change the notes of a phrase just because you can't play it technically. But if you work through things like this and you make sure you get the inside and outside picking sorted, you're gonna feel that most things are gonna feel way better technically. Eighth notes at 80 BPMs, starting on the first available note here, which is F, because I don't want to use open strings. So here we go. First position, and we start on G. Now, I obviously try to relax as much as possible to keep my fingers close to the fretboard and all that stuff, but I'm not as focused on that as I would be when I do any type of finger choreography practice. And if you missed that video, I'm going to link to that at the end of this one. But so yes, you know that I'm not focusing on that now. I use that type of practice specifically for that, and also for general technique development. I'm also focusing on transition time, and I've linked to that below as well. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, but it's basically just means that I'm trying to move as quickly as possible from note to note. And other than that, just trying to keep in time as much as possible. And again, it's even though it's just eighth notes, it's trickier than you might think to really keep those solid. And again, that's more of a focus thing at the end of the day. So you kind of need to keep the focus on that, so you don't, let the metronome just be in the background and you kind of play whatever above it. All right, next position, starting on A. Right, so I also try to focus on not getting any type of sliding sounds, so I try to avoid it as much as possible, so really clean shifting. All right, next note, B here. Next one, starting on C. All right, so the last one here, starting on D, and that is the last one because this will take me up to the 24th fret, and then I'm out of frets. Alright, so we're not done yet. Now we want to go back down, but when we do that, I like to start at the top position. So basically starting with the descending pattern and then ending on the ascending pattern. So I'm basically going to start on the highest position here again, but instead of starting here, I'm going to start here and then I'm going to end up here as well before moving down to the next note. So you kind of make sure you're used to both versions because they do feel different even though we're technically playing exactly the same thing. All right, so the high E, 24th fret. All right, bit of a slide sound there, but I'm gonna let it pass for this time. All right, so the next note, D. Starting on C. Starting on B. Starting on A. Starting on G, which is the final one. That's the whole thing, and when I use this myself, I generally do it in some other key because I feel very comfortable in the key of C major and A minor. So you should stick to some key that you feel is easy at first, so yes, you can get through the actual technical side of it, but then once you start feeling really comfortable with the technique side, instead of raising the tempo of the metronome, just change the key instead, so you can challenge yourself that way while still keeping the tempo low enough so you can really focus on the transition time and also, everything that goes with that, meaning being relaxed and the accuracy being on point. And like I said before as well, I try to focus on clean transitions. I might not always get that, but if it's not a blatant, super crappy transition, I generally don't do it again. But if you find that you make a lot of mistakes and you don't like the sound or whatever, please, for your own sake, just lower the tempo, because it won't take you anywhere if you sit there and practice at too high of a tempo. It's absolutely fine to try things faster, but if you make mistakes, you shouldn't keep repeating them. Instead, you can take the feedback from trying it faster and then go back down to where you have control again, and maybe focus a bit extra on the place where you had issues at the fast attempt. But a lot of people sit there and try to do it fast again and again and again, and that becomes into like a repetitive exercise. And that will seep into your muscle memory, whether you like it or not. So whatever you do, don't sit there and repeat mistakes. Instead, find a comfortable tempo where everything just works, and that will help you more in the long run. And like I said, trying it faster and using speed bursts and stuff like that, that all has its place, but you need to build a really solid foundation for you to do any type of speed burst work with anyway. So don't be afraid of mistakes, but use them as a learning experience and don't sit there and repeat them over and over and over again. Instead, learn from the mistakes at the fast tempo and then work through those bad spots with slower practice. So if you want to learn more about the finger choreography, you could check out this video.